Aloha everyone, this is Arado and we're here to talk about Melissa. I want to cover her in detail and wanted to show what she can do in global, how it compares with JP, and I want to talk more about what her skill number 3 can do and also the value of intrinsic. So first off, I want to give a quick shout out to Toko-san for the Macha artwork we have on display. Toko-san does a lot of Saga Scarlet Grace artwork. When you have the chance, please visit Toko-san's page in Twitter and you would see most of the artwork just like what I have on display. Thank you so much, Toko-san. Arigatou gozaimasu. Alright, so with that, I want to start the conversation with going through Melissa, in detail. So Melissa, as you know, is a very competent support character. So she is able to heal herself with Cure Water, and then she is able to buff with pretty useful buff, I would say. And also the unique aspect of her is her skill number 3, Water Lilies, where it gives everyone the Phantom buff. So the Phantom buff allows everyone to have that 25% chance to dodge any attack. So if you are an OG player, you would know that the first SS Acellus came with this ability, and back then it was a game changer, like that clutch, come on, you gotta dodge, and then sure enough it dodged and you were able to win the battle. And so that's what I wanted to highlight for Melissa, because not only I understand that 25% is a little low, but having that extra capability in you to be able to dodge, even though it's at a low chance, is something better than not having anything or just having your plain defenses with you, right? So that's why I'm all for getting Melissa. And with this ability, and also including her skill number 3 from her old style being changed to defense boost, that I can foresee Melissa to be somebody who you would want to bring in a hard content, especially in a scenario where you need some buffing or you need defense boost capability. And she is best paired with BP battery, so that either you can give extra BP and defense boost, or you can give the Phantom buff. And that goes to the next aspect I want to cover for Melissa. So one of the things that she has as well is her intrinsic ability. As you know, I am a big fan of intrinsic, mainly because it's on top of gearing your character properly, where you are able to resist damage, further mitigating any incoming damage, but also you would have that 37% chance to dodge an enemy attack. If you have been watching my Spiral Corridor in JP, you would know that I have taken advantage of intrinsic really a lot. Because especially in Spiral Corridor 190, where Basil Grayos just throws everything at you. He does so much damage, it hits really hard, and so your only way to be able to survive is having a lot of defense boost. That's why I use 4.5 year Joe in that one. And also also Bertrand is able to counter with Dominant Blaze, and so that allows him to heal himself on top of being able to dodge and being able to mitigate damage further, because I geared him with everything that's at least 35 defenses. So I think that's the problem with intrinsic right now. I understand that we have Katarina, Saga Matriarch, and also Melissa now having the intrinsic ability, and you'd be wondering, so how do we allocate the equipment at that point? Because it's impossible for you to be able, especially if the boss does maybe 5 to 6 different element at a time, that it's impossible for you to be able to gear them at the 35 resistance with all of them taking advantage of intrinsic. And so that's where you would be placing your placing your characters properly in a formation. So for example, let me move to JP real quick and I'll be right back. Alright friends, I'm back. So we have time travel to JP. This is the setup I used for Spiral 190, which is the main example I would love to use, mainly because I utilize Bertrand's Intrinsic a lot in this one. I prayed to RNG really bad, that's why it took me at least a week of retry to be able to get that, you know, that quote-unquote one good pattern for you to be able to survive the battle. And so for Bertrand, he also has Intrinsic, this school Bertrand. So I gave him at least 35 to everything except for Sun, which he nullifies anyway, so no problem with that. And then everybody else, like Wagner's for example, I picked certain elements that I feel that the enemy would be doing damage, because I have self-immolation for Wagner's that I don't need to do heat element resistance to him. And for Joe, I just gave whatever resistance that she can have, and then hope that she would dodge most of the enemy attacks. And yes, there is some negative in that one, because I know a lot of Basil's attack is AoE elemental ones, blunt, heat, cold, and dark element, and also sometimes sun element and thunder. And so that's what I focused on, and that's how you would be able to take advantage of multiple characters having intrinsic, although you know it's different type of characters where Bertrand is naturally high / resistance, and then Wagner's with pierce and Joe with blunt accordingly. So that also plays a factor when you plan for your party, where if you try to bring in multiple intrinsic characters, that you would need to make sure that you can gear them properly, or at least those that you think that they would be taking most of the damage of, and so you would be able to take advantage and be able to dodge those attacks accordingly. And since I'm in this screen right now in JP, I want to move back to Melissa's skill number 3. So this is Saga Soul Patrick. So Saga Soul Patrick is the only one in JP that has a buff, and also only to himself, where he can buff himself with a 37% chance to dodge for 3 turns. So this one, it says you buff yourself with a dodge. It's at the large chance, so 37% for 3 turns. So basically his niche is cast skill number 3, and then keep using sunlight chain, and then build up BP again to use skill number 3, and so on. You want him to get hit because he gives dex and intelligence to the party as he gets hit, and so that is his niche for being a cover tank. And so that's why I mentioned that Melissa's buff is very unique, because like I said, only Saga Soul Patrick has this, and it affects himself only, while Melissa has it as an AoE. Although, and it's also at 9 BP, I believe, because yeah, Patrick is also at 9 BP. So that's a big deal to consider. Again, if you have more BP battery in the party, the more the better for Melissa to keep on using that skill number 3. It depends on what kind of role that you want to give Melissa at that too. So, and that goes to the other topic I want to discuss, in which the different styles that gets released in JP accordingly. So the very first one that has that kind of ability like buff that they can give to the party is Bunny Emilia. So Bunny Emilia, with the Brilliant Bunny Show, she gives this buff to everyone except for herself, and then that allows everyone to have a 25% chance to do an extra small heal at turn end, which is pretty useful back then and not as useful now. And so the more characters they release, the more that we would have more characters that can do multiple stuff. Again, they want to compress as much capability as they can in a character, and at the same time being able to either do damage if they're designed as a DPS, or be focused on a support if at that. So just like UDX Aslana, which is my favorite right now because she gives endurance and willpower whenever she does this attractive dance, skill number 3. So it's a 3 to 4 hits. Every hit it gives a small effect of willpower and endurance. And then on top of that, she also gives defense boost and attack boost to the party at turn start. And also she gives these 2 passives to everyone at turn starts. Even though it's just for 1 turn, she keeps on giving it at turn start. So technically it lasts for the entire battle. And so each buff would have different capability. Like this one, after you get hit, you get a damage block 1 time, so the next attack becomes a 0 damage. This one, if you're taking a resist damage, that you would buff yourself with dex and intelligence. And then there's also who else? Sorry, where is it? Saga Misty. So Saga Misty gives this buff. So this one, if your HP is not full, whenever you do an attack, your attack lands, you would buff yourself with agility, intelligence, love, and charisma. And so, yeah. And then there's also Ludwig. So Ludwig giving this passive buff to everyone at battle start. I don't know why it's not opening. So it says if HP is not full, that you would increase damage and mitigate damage. If you're at critical HP, you further increase damage and further you don't further mitigate defense, but rather you would have a 25% chance to take 0 damage for any incoming damage. So those are just some example. And so other than, you know, the slowly changing hard content approach that we are doing in global, it's gonna come to a point where it's not only one solution to a battle. There could be sometimes 2 solutions, like the way I did Spiral 180 with Time Lord and Kirin. So with that, I don't have my party anymore. But I used, what was that? I used Finale Macha, Wagnas, and then I think I used Kami, which is one of the best DPS I feel as a single target. And then who else was that? But yeah, it's something as a makeshift, but it's enough for you to be able to tackle the content, because the game now slowly gives you the tools that you need, unlike before where we're kind of stuck with the Paean of Victory approach, where you gotta do rapid stream, you gotta debuff agility, you gotta buff agility, and so that's how you can survive the battle. Right now in JP, the usual hard content players with the top shelf pick is Maria, which is Sophia's palette swap, and also Death. The support Death we would get as part of the finale banners, because they give so much defenses, they do a lot of capability to the party, and also they buff what's needed to the party to survive, and so they're the top picks. And so if you kept up with the JP content, they would be doing those kind of party. And so now that we are starting to move into that era where we now give that ability like buff to the party, starting with Melissa, that things are gonna change. It's gonna be, unfortunately, you gotta pull for the character, but if you're able to pull for those characters, it's gonna be a lot more fun to be creative and be able to try out different setups, not the usual on those that can clear content really fast, that you would just copy and be done with it. If, you know, just basically having fun with the game. I don't know what your definition is of fun, but for me, trying to come up with unique stuff and being able to showcase that, yeah, you can do it this way too, kind of thing, that I feel is what's fun for me. And lastly, focusing on Intrinsic, the reason why I wanted to highlight that is because again, extra defenses and stuff. And also, that's the reason why I kept on using first Anya still, because Anya has intrinsic, as you know, and I rely on that dodge capability, even though, you know, sometimes RNG would be against you and you would not be dodging as much as you can, that you would just be dead, taking damage and stuff. And so it's still RNG based, but if it falls into your favor, then it's something worthwhile that I feel is worth mentioning. And for me, whenever I see intrinsic and it's a hard content character, I would always try to give it a higher, I would say I would rave about it and encourage people to pull if you have the resources to do so, mainly because I am a big fan of intrinsic. But you know, a lot of the characters, even though they don't have intrinsic, they are still useful for what they do. Shirei, for example, he gives that very, very useful BP plus 10 to the party, but he doesn't have intrinsic, so you would have to go to the route where you would need the proper defenses like Ludwig in the party, and then somebody else like UDX Aslana and additional defense boost, so that people without the chance to dodge enemy attacks would be able to stand a chance to survive deadly attacks at that. So that's the different routes that I see in JP on how we tackle hard content. If the characters you're using majority don't have intrinsic, you gotta have proper defenses, or just like me with the Spiral 190, go full on glass cannon. Well, not full on because I still have defenses, but get as much defenses as you can, but still look like a glass cannon with Bertrand, Wagnus, and Joe just dodging, hoping that they would dodge, be able to resist the ailments and clear the hard content. So if you want to watch more of those in action, try watch my JP video for 210, 200, 190, and 180 Spiral Corridor. Those are the hardest ones that I am very proud of clearing, because I normally don't watch other people's clear on that, because I wanted to figure out myself. I wanted to try and test out and see from a block box that, okay, this is what this boss can do, how do I build defenses out of it, kind of thing. So yeah, hopefully you would learn a thing or two from that, and also be hyped like me, for example, that I'm really hyped for School Bertrand, School Wagnus, and Saga Labelle, Saga Elised, and 4.5 year Joe, and maybe 4.5 year Ludwig at that. Alright, thank you so much everyone for listening me rant about, well, not rant, but rather talk about Melissa some more. And yes, Solid Snake, I know you're gonna watch this, and yes, I really like Melissa for her skill number 3, and also for her intrinsic, and also being able to heal. There's so much that she can do with Inherit that she's just a good character to have. Again, visit Toko-san, Shima-Toko85 on Twitter for more of Toko-san's artwork. And also the music you're hearing on the background is done by my friend Rafael Amaral. I put his Spotify link on the description if you would like to visit that. Thank you so much for listening everyone, and see you in the next video and stream. Peace and love.